Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Today we are going to find the slope from a table. The only difference here is that I don't have dots on a graph, but to find slope, I still need to take the change in y over the change in x. I'm going to kind of show you a little bit of a shortcut so we don't have to worry, okay, positive, negative, what's going on? If I look at these numbers on my y, these numbers are going up. Right? -4 to negative up to -1. We're growing. We're growing to 2. We're growing to 5. We're growing to 8. We're growing. We're getting bigger. That's a positive. On the change in x, if I look over here, we're in the x column, -2 to -1, -1 to 0, 0 to 1. These numbers are getting bigger also. They are also growing, so it's a positive. A positive divided by a positive is always a positive. So when I am done, my slope is going to be a positive answer. Now if I look this, I like using positive numbers. So if we can skip around and go to positive numbers, let's do it. So let's start here at 2 and we're going to go from 2 to 5. 2 to 5 is 3 spots. Okay. Now if I look at this one, 5 to 8, that's 3 spots. Fantastic. So my change in y is 3 spots. I could also go back -4 to -1, that's 3, -1 to 2, that's 3 also. Okay. Now I go to the bottom, or the change in x. Let's go back to the positive. 0 to 1, we're growing by 1. 1 to 2, we're growing by 1. I go back to the negatives. -2 to -1, we also grew by 1. -1 to 0, we grew by 1. So my change in my x is 1. So my slope is either 3 or 3 over 1. So change in y over change in x. Let's do our next example. Same idea. Change in y over the change in x. Now, if I look at my y values, as we're moving down, guess what? They are growing. They are getting bigger. As I look at my x values, 5 to 2, I just dropped. 2 to -1, we're getting smaller. Those are negatives. So I'm going to have a positive over a negative. My answer in the end needs to be a negative because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Okay, there we go. Now, if I'm looking at my change in y, 2 to 6. Well, 2 to 6 gets us, that moves us 4 spots. 6 to 10. Okay, so 7, 8, 9, 10. That moved us 4 spots. 10 to 14, that's 4 spots on a number line. 14 to 22, that's not 4 spots on a number line. 14 to 20 is 6, and another 2 gives us 8. All right, let's look at the x's. 5 to 2, that drops us 3. We already have that negative on the bottom, okay? 2 to 1, that drops us 3, or 2 to -1, sorry. -1 to -4 would be 3 spots on a number line. -4 to -10, that's 6 spots on a number line. So if I look at this and I look at change in y, let's look at this, 4 over 3. Let's look at the next one, 4 over 3. Same thing, 4 over 3. Here I have 8 over 6. But if you look and you remember back from like elementary school and middle school days, we cannot leave it as 8 over 6 because I can divide both of these by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Guess what? Those are the same numbers. So I'm going to plug in a 4 on the top, 3 on the bottom. Now, if you remember, we said a positive divided by negative is a negative. So we have a negative 4 over 3. On our last example, change in y over the change in x. This is finding our slope. Now the y's are on the bottom. We're going from 1 to -1. We're getting smaller, smaller, smaller. That's negative. If I look at our x value, -2 to -3 moves us left. We're getting smaller, 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 smaller. That's another negative. A negative divided by a negative is always a positive. So in the end, our slope has to be a positive number. It's going to be a positive fraction. So if I look at the change in y, if I'm going from 1 to -1, I'm dropping 2. -1 to -3, I'm dropping 2, I'm dropping 2, I'm dropping 2. So our top number is our 2. Let me get rid of these. Okay, on the top, -2 to -3, we're going down 1, we're going down 1, we're going down 1, we're going down 1. Change in our y values is 2. Change in the x values is 1. Remember, it was down and down, so we had to change that into a positive. So you can either leave it as positive 2 over 1 or just 2. And on your assignment, either one is acceptable. All right, good luck. If you have further questions, make sure you email me. Let me know, and I will see you soon.